Imagine leaving your house for the entire day and nobody having any way to reach you until you returned, or having to unfold a massive paper map on your steering wheel just to find a new restaurant. Here are 10 everyday habits before smartphones that made life completely different. Memorizing phone numbers was a necessary daily habit before we carried our contact list in our pockets. If you grew up in the 20th century, your brain was a biological Rolodex, capable of instantly recalling the home numbers of friends, grandparents, and the local pizza parlor. For the numbers you could not commit to memory, every household had a trusty physical address book kept next to the landline. Finding a number meant flipping through alphabetized pages filled with crossed-out addresses. If you were out of the house and needed to make a call, you had to rely on a public payphone and your own memory. Today, most of us struggle to remember our spouse's phone number, but back then, knowing a dozen numbers by heart was just a normal part of everyday life. Navigating with physical maps was the only way to survive a road trip or drive to an unfamiliar part of town. Every glove compartment across America was stuffed with folding state maps, and city dwellers almost certainly owned a thick Thomas guide. Navigating meant pulling over, unfolding a massive sheet of paper over your steering wheel, and deciphering grid coordinates. You had to plan your route before you ever put the car in drive, writing down turn-by-turn directions on scrap paper. If you missed your exit or encountered unexpected construction, there was no robotic voice to automatically reroute you. You simply had to roll down your window at a gas station and ask a local for directions, hoping they actually knew the right way to get you back on track. Waiting for film to develop required real patience, as taking a photograph was only the first step. Without digital screens to instantly review your pictures, you never knew if someone blinked or if the lighting was terrible. You had to carefully ration your shots, knowing that a roll of film only held 24 or 36 exposures. Once the roll was finished, you would drop it off at a local pharmacy, a camera shop, or a tiny photomat booth sitting in a grocery store parking lot. Days later, you would finally pick up the glossy prints, flipping through the physical envelope with eager anticipation. Getting a double exposure or a completely blurry thumb over the lens was common, but it made the few perfect shots feel incredibly special and worth the wait. Checking the newspaper for movie times was a mandatory ritual if you wanted to go to the cinema. Every Friday, the entertainment section featured large advertisements for the newest Hollywood blockbusters, surrounded by tiny columns listing the showtimes for every theater in town. If you missed the morning paper, your other option was to call the theater and listen to a pre-recorded voice enthusiastically rattle off the times. You had to sit through 5 minutes of listings just to find out when your movie was starting. Because you could not buy tickets in advance with a few taps on a screen, showing up early was absolutely essential. Standing in a line that wrapped around the building was just part of the classic weekend experience. Recording music off the radio was a labor of love that required quick reflexes and a blank cassette tape. Instead of streaming any song on demand, you had to sit by your boombox and patiently wait for the local radio DJ to play your favorite track. The moment you heard the opening notes, you slammed your fingers down on the play and record buttons simultaneously. The biggest frustration was when the DJ talked straight through the intro or cut the song off early for a commercial break. Creating the perfect mixtape for a road trip took hours of dedicated listening and precise timing. Those homemade tapes, complete with handwritten track lists, were deeply personal treasures that defined the soundtrack of our youth, long before digital algorithms took over the job of picking our music. Settling arguments with physical encyclopedias took real effort before search engines gave us the collective knowledge of humanity in seconds. If you were arguing with a friend about the capital of North Dakota, you could not just pull out a smartphone. Instead, you had to walk over to the bookshelf and pull out a heavy, leather-bound volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica or World Book. Families invested serious money into these multi-volume sets, buying them from traveling salesmen just to help their kids with school reports. If your home encyclopedia was outdated, you actually had to ride your bike to the public library and ask the reference librarian for help. Finding a simple fact was a physical journey, making the information feel much more earned and permanent in your memory. Watching television on a strict schedule was an inflexible event that dictated your entire evening. If a highly anticipated season finale or beloved holiday special was airing at 8 o'clock, you made sure you were sitting on the couch by 7:55. There was no pausing live TV to grab a snack, and if you missed an episode, you simply had to wait months for the summer reruns. Families relied heavily on the weekly TV Guide magazine, using highlighters to circle the programs they wanted to watch. The concept of binge watching was completely non-existent, as the suspense of waiting a whole week for the next episode was a shared experience. The next morning at the office, everyone gathered around the water cooler to discuss the exact same broadcast. Leaving messages on answering machines heavily involved the iconic blinking red light of a physical microcassette recorder. Coming home from a long day meant immediately walking over to the kitchen counter to see if anyone had called. You would press play and listen to the mechanical whir of the tape rewinding before hearing the voices of friends or relatives. Screening calls became a popular household sport, where families would sit in silence while the machine picked up, waiting to see who was talking before deciding whether to snatch the receiver off the wall. Dealing with busy signals was another daily struggle, requiring you to repeatedly dial a friend's number for an hour if someone else was tying up the landline with their own long conversations. Reading shampoo bottles in the bathroom was a universal habit when entertainment options were incredibly limited. Without a glowing screen to scroll through social media or play games, you were left entirely to your own devices if you forgot to bring a magazine. This led to grabbing whatever was in arm's reach, which usually meant studying the back of a hair care product. Millions of Americans unwittingly memorized chemical ingredients, learning how to pronounce complex words simply out of sheer boredom. Air freshener cans, toothpaste tubes, and the labels on cleaning supplies all served as impromptu reading material. It was a strange, solitary ritual that forced our brains to slow down and embrace a quiet moment without a constant stream of digital information demanding our attention. Being completely unreachable was perhaps the most profound difference in everyday life before smartphones took over. When you left your house, you were entirely disconnected from the demands of the world, and nobody expected you to reply to a message within minutes. Kids would ride their bikes around the neighborhood from dawn till the streetlights came on, and their parents had no way of tracking their location. If you went to the grocery store or took a walk in the park, you were alone with your own thoughts, free from vibrating notifications and the pressure to constantly be available. This lack of constant connectivity fostered a sense of independence and allowed people to truly be present in the moment, offering a peaceful mental quietness that is incredibly hard to find today. So, if you could bring back one of these old daily habits, which one would it be? Drop a comment down below to tell us your favorite memory from before smartphones took over.